Well, hello, welcome everyone. We are live. There's Steve, and I'm here as
Hello.
well. That means you get both of us today for your Thursday Q&A. Hello, Steve.
How you doing, man?
Yeah, all very good, mate. All very good. So you were
You
doing
just
some
caught you
scratching.
caught me off you caught me off guard there, just practicing.
Oh yeah. Anyone will believe that. So listen, people. The reason we got Steve with us for Tuesday, got to stop saying Tuesday, for Thursday Q&A today is that we are doing a scratching special. So these Q&As are all about helping you with your DJing, and we'd like you to ask any questions you've got about scratching. Maybe you want to start scratching, maybe you're stuck, maybe you don't know why anyone bothers. Whatever it is, Steve is our scratch tutor. And the reason that Steve's here today is that we've just launched our 2020 all new Scratching for Controller DJs course literally a few hours ago. How long ago? Yeah, a few hours ago.
Yeah.
And so it's all about scratching here at Digital DJ Tips at the moment. So we thought it'd be good to get him on Thursday Q&A chatting about it. So welcome everyone. Steve, I'm going to run through a few people just saying hello because people
Cool.
are arriving and warming up. Nick says, show starting in 1 minute. That was just an excuse to kill some time scratching, eh? So he thought it was me, but no, that was definitely Steve scratching. So hi to Charlie, who says, Charlie Casanova in the building, Digital DJ Tips rocks. So thank you very much for that comment. Lots and lots of scratch questions coming in already. So whether you're joining us on Twitch, on our YouTube channel, on Facebook group, on our Facebook page, Facebook Global DJ Network group, or on Mixcloud, it's great to have you here. Do let us know that you can hear and see us okay, because we've done a bit of a weird technical setup here. Let us know that you can hear the music and us talking and stuff. I'm pretty sure you can. But if you're totally new to this is Digital DJ Tips. It is the number one online digital DJ school where the people behind this book rock the dance floor, which you'll see on Amazon and on audiobooks and Kindle and all that. But we're here to help you become better DJs and better DJ producers. A lot of you will know digitaldjtips.com, but also we have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have where you're watching us now, and we have 23, I think now, DJ courses, which teach you everything from beginner to advanced. And the Scratching for Controller DJs course we're talking about now is one of them. And Steve is the tutor for it, which is why he's here. Can stop for breath now, Steve.
Yeah,
So
cool,
loads and
nice.
loads of people asking questions, which is also exactly what we wanted. So let's do that. We're gonna prefer the scratch questions, but that doesn't mean that we can't answer some of your other questions as well. But I'm gonna bias towards the scratch questions. This isn't really a question; it's just from Gary, Steve, who says, "I've never
Yeah.
learned to scratch. I never needed it, but I've always wanted to have the skill." Steve, you've taught 2,500 students now in digital
Yeah.
DJ tips. Is that normal? Do you get people saying, I don't know why I need this, but I just really want to learn it anyway?
Yeah, I think yeah, definitely. It's just for a lot of people, the things that they saw when they were younger that inspired them to get into DJing were quite often DJs doing scratching or manipulating turntables in an impressive way. And I think that's I've still got, even though I can scratch, I've still got another sort of thing that I always wanted to be able to do, which was doing a windmill, a breakdancing move, the windmill. And I still will learn to do a windmill. It's on my bucket list. But it's just one of those things that oh, that's so cool. I'd love to be able to do that. Another one for me is being able to play the drums, for example. So it doesn't mean I want to be in a band. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be drumming all day, every day, or putting it to any other use other than that it's cool. I've always wanted to have a go at it. And it is really fun. And also learning to scratch just gives you sort of confidence to just grab hold of your jog wheels, grab hold of your fader, take control of your DJ gear. And also once you can do a few scratches and people seeing you doing it, it's like there's no denying that you're a guy who has got skills. Do you know what I mean? You're not just a button pusher. So it's very common.
And so why not, people? There's no
Yeah.
need to have a bigger end here. It's just as Steve says, it's just fun. So Kyle, this is a really great question actually. Kyle says, I'm wondering how long audiences will listen to a scratch sequence like that. It's a great question because there's all kinds of DJs, aren't there? There's mobile DJs,
Yep.
there's club DJs, there's scratch performance DJs who enter competitions and people just go to watch them performing. Steve,
Yep. Yeah.
would you
So
scratch like that in front of an audience in a club? How do you show off your skills and make yourself stand out without pissing everyone off by just over egging the pudding kind of thing? What's the some tips about getting that right?
yeah, so it's about getting the balance right of if you want to scratch in normal DJ sets, it's how much do you do it? And you know, if you've ever been to a rock concert, there's going to be the drum solo, right? And people tolerate it for a little bit, but after a while, they basically want the big tunes being played again and for the drummer to shut up and do his job. And I think it's the same for DJing. To me, like the best, if you watch any Jazzy Jeff videos of him doing sets, it's the perfect mix of tune selection, letting the tracks play, and using scratches in the right way to go between tracks. He uses scratches more for transitions, and then there will be sort of little routines that he does, like especially the Peter Piper routines, things that he's famous for. But that like sort of minute that I did there, if I was playing like an instrumental or a track that had an instrumental section that was like 40 seconds or a minute long, then you can do a few scratches over that section, just do that, then move on, maybe 2 or 3 tracks later, do another little bit of showing off. But it's one of those things that just because you can do it, don't do it all the time. And I think audiences will stay with you as long as you don't turn into that drum solo guy, basically.
It's just another skill, isn't it? And it's another thing. It's like anything. It's like using effects or using loops or playing boring tunes or playing all the big tunes. It has to be a balance between everything, right? It has to be all going to a greater end. I think that's the important thing. But of course, it also depends on the audience. We've seen DJs doing a great job of putting a little bit of scratching into wedding sets. And if you can do it in a wedding set, you can do it anywhere. So thank you for that question, Kyle. Klaus is asking about the course. If you're just joining us, this is Steve Canueto, our Scratch tutor. He's here because we've just relaunched our all-new Scratching for Controller DJs. And Klaus says, is it the same course as when it first came out? No, Klaus, it's been completely remade. It was completely remade towards the back end of last year, but we haven't launched it yet in 2020 with this current offer. So it's literally just a few months old, this course. It's one of our newest. So Gary says, well, how do I scratch? That's my first question. We could be here all night, couldn't we? Gary, there's a course for that. We'd love to teach you, seriously. Take a look at it. I'll give you the URL, actually. If anyone's interested, it's like, give me the bloody URL. I want to look at that course. It's that one you can see there, djtips.co/scratch course. So if you do want to just go check it out, as I say, it's hot at the moment. It's just gone out there. But we're answering all your Scratch questions. Brother named Sherm on Mixcloud says, I saw Terence Parker Scratch playing house music sets. So there you go. It is, you know, and also you can make yourself stand out by being the DJ who scratches in your scene. I used to have a DJ, Rascal, hello Rascal if you're watching, who DJ'd for me in the club I used to promote. And Rascal played trance. He's a trance DJ. And kind of the hard end of trance as well, so verging into techno and happy hardcore, all that kind of stuff. He used to scratch. Now, no one else scratched in that style of music. And because he was the only one, he got all the bookings. Well, he got a lot of bookings. So, all right, let's keep moving out some of these questions. I've got one that means you'll have to use your decks, Steve.
Just on that Terence Parker point, by the way, there's one of our most popular articles we ever wrote on the website was 7 myths busted about scratching. And one of the things there was like, I play house, there's no room for it in my genre. And that Terence Parker video of him scratching on CDJ 2000s over house music is in that article. So go and check that out.
Oh, cool. Right. Okay. So thanks for that, Steve. And also, actually, while we're talking about the website, have a look at this, people. This is the current Digital DJ Tips homepage. And there's an article on it called Scratching, 5 Things You're Almost Certainly Doing Wrong. This is a really good article. There's a video in it as well. It was actually one of these that we did a little while back where we go through these 5 things. And they're also all linked out here in this article you're seeing on the screen now. So if you are kind of like having a go and it's not working out how you want to, go and have a look at that article. Right, Steve, here's a question that'll get you to flex your muscles. Alex says, I've been DJing a long time now. I do like to scratch and I can do it, but I think sometimes it's more by accident than design. Especially with some of the more complicated scratches. Could you demo a few scratches for us? Steve, could you demo maybe 2 or 3, basic scratches and just to show people stuff that they could maybe be doing in a few weeks' time if they really want to put their effort into it?
Yeah, so just before I do that, I think that one of the things that we said you're almost certainly doing wrong in that article is like mimicking without understanding. And I think you just kind of, if you watch people and think, oh, I'm going to have a go at that, you get the same sound, you get the same beat, you just do the same movements that you see them doing. But it doesn't sound the same, or probably, sorry, what's the name of the guy who asked the question? Alex. So like you may, like you say, sometimes by accident it sort of happens and you go, oh, I did it then, but then you can't replicate it because you're just sort of like moving your hands around like you think the other guy's doing. really need to learn the very, very basics, the fundamentals, and have them completely locked down and complete muscle memory around them. So let
So
me
before you go on,
just talk.
Steve, Alex was saying, I want to see some of the more complicated scratches. He name checked hamster, flare, and crab. I think for the sake of people who've never scratched before, which would be the majority of people watching this, we need to rein it in a bit from some of those, although I believe they're all taught in the course. Am I right about that, Steve?
Yeah, well, hamster. Hamster is actually a style of reversed fader. It's not necessarily a scratch.
Yeah.
Crab is taught. What was the other one? Flare is
Flare,
taught in
yeah.
there. And actually, I'll be straight with you. My skills are to a certain level, but we've got other tutors in the course that basically, once you get to the advanced level, they take you there. So DJ Angelo is the guy who teaches those scratches. We've also got DJ Rasp from the UK, who was an IDA and DMC world champion, and Carlo Attendido as well, who's a great Red Bull champion scratch DJ. So collectively, the tutors, we can teach you all of those scratches, but I can't do all of those advanced ones necessarily. But
Well, for the sake
doesn't
for the sake of
go
everyone
on.
watching who just wants to be able to do anything, Steve, demonstrate a couple of things which to the uninitiated are going to look pretty impressive. And remember to switch
All
over to
right,
your big camera. Yeah, I'll get you on the screen. Just you.
cool. All
Over to
right.
you, mate.
Okay, so got a classic scratch sound here with a nice crisp start to the sound. If you can see that on the waveform, that really helps with this scratch to make a nice cutting sound, because basically it's very, very sharp at the beginning, the sound. Okay, so you come from a point of silence into the sound. So this is why this sound is so popular to use. Starting off with just a baby scratch. Okay, straight backwards and forwards, no fader movements at all. You can do that at different tempos. But those are both baby scratches. And then if you start to incorporate the fader, it's about cutting out certain parts of the sound or including certain parts of the sound is where the scratches start to become a little bit more complex. The first one is the forward or cut scratch, which is where you only hear the forward motion and you don't hear any of the reverse. So it's still a baby scratch, which is like this. But now I'm going to cut out the reverse. All right, so that's a cut. But you can see I'm doing a baby scratch and using the fader here to cut out the reverse. Now this is a classic one where you'll see DJs doing this and you just get hold of the jog wheel, get hold of the fader, move them at the same time. And you start to hear that, where you're starting to hear the reverse stroke. And that's because these actions are not actually happening at exactly the same time. I'm going to slow the order right down just so you can get an understanding. What's actually happening is the fader opens, the hand moves, then the fader closes, and the hand comes back. That's slowed right down. Okay, and it's split seconds. So once you're actually proficient at doing this, you don't know that slight difference. It looks like they happen at the same time, but it's that order which ensures you don't hear the backstroke. Then what can happen if you're practicing cut scratches like that, which is that you accidentally hear the backstroke. So you're here and you don't close the fader and you hear the backstroke like that. That's actually a chirp scratch, but what I call them sometimes is accidental chirps because they've happened. You're trying to do cuts, but because you're not precise with switching the fader off, you hear the reverse. But when you're intending to do a chirp, this is what it's like. Obviously given its name by sounding very chirpy. So you are intentionally hearing just the very first part of the reverse stroke. Okay, and then babies, cuts and chirps really can see you through an awful lot of DJing. Pretty much that was most of what I was doing in that little demo at the beginning. I'll just do baby scratches and chirps over the beat for 20 seconds. There you go.
Cool. Thank you for that, Steve. So awesome. We've swapped places now. You're on the left. That's weird. So
Ah,
that's cool. So I hope that helps people. So, we wanted to do something there for beginners as well as for people who've maybe done this for a bit to show you that there is more than just random here. There is a bit of thinking goes into getting even the most basic scratches right. Dirty Jokes fan has a very kind comment, says, I would wholeheartedly encourage anyone to learn scratching from Digital DJ Tips. Please note, however, that Boomerang Scratch has a special place in hell. Good luck. So there we go.
I agree.
Steve
Completely.
agrees. And
Yeah.
Sideshow Mall says that they can help you with the windmill. So there you go, Steve. We've
Ah,
got someone there who's prepared
could
to
have
put their time
a
into.
reciprocal deal going on here.
It sounds like we could, yeah. Sideshow Mall says, would the current Scratch course be upgraded with the new stuff, Steve?
Yes.
There you go.
So if you were a previous member, you've got access to all of the new stuff.
Perfect.
And when
So
we talk about the new stuff in the course, it really was, the core training was all there. I refilmed everything in basically in 4K with all the most modern gear. But the core training was like, the teaching method is the teaching method. The formula was locked in. But I added a lot of tools to help you learn faster. And the best ones are the follow along practice demos. So there's video versions and there's audio versions. So for every single scratch technique throughout the course, right from the very, very most simple ones all the way up to the advanced ones, there are drills that you follow. So it's a separate video and you get the scratch sound, the same sound on your decks. You watch the video, and what happens is I do the demo, or the pattern for like 4 beats or 4 bars, and then there's a space, and you follow along and fill in that space. It's like the dueling guitars type thing. It's like you have to try and fill that space with what I just did, and these go on for a long time. So you can just lock in that practice. It keeps you focused, and there's audio versions as well that you can load up in your DJ software. And you have the actual movements and the scratches and the fader movements all on screen for you as well. So that's the majority of the sort of new stuff that we put in the course, was to basically make it even easier to learn.
Craig says, I'm 49 years old. I can't get my head around scratching. I've looked at a few online courses and tutorials, but I still can't get my head around it. Am I just an old dog that can't learn a new trick? Steve, 2,000 students. Have you had any Craigs?
Many. And one of the most common comments that we get, or testimonials that we get, or feedback that I get, is like, at last, I've been trying on my own for years, or I've tried other courses, and I'm finally getting it now. And it's because I take it right back to the very, very basics. For most people who have attempted to teach themselves scratching or taken other courses, they have bad habits, and those bad habits are what you take into each practice session. And when you're trying to master something, if even just that little thing there where I was talking to you about, the fader has to be open first, then the jog wheel, then the fader close, and the jog wheel back. Like a lot of I've broken every single technique down to absolute grassroots, and taught it in a way that once you learn those basics, because you have to have those basics, they become the foundation for being able to do everything else. But a big part of it is unlearning bad habits. So I'm sure you're in the same. I'm sure it's the same for you. Like I just can't get my head around it is probably that you need to forget everything you think you know, forget everything you've learned, and start again absolutely from fresh. And you'll progress quickly.
So Mark was replying to Craig, who said, you're definitely old, Craig, but you can still learn new stuff. So there you go. Someone on our Facebook group says, I saw a preview of the course and I saw them with their hand on the left jog wheel. Do you do videos with your hand on the right jog wheel and the left hand on the crossfader? Steve, hands and jog wheels and stuff. Explain a bit about that.
All right, so let me flip the camera angle again. So what I will do, actually, seeing as I've got the technology here, is go here and have the full jog wheel view. And you can still hear me, right? Yeah, you can.
We can hear you fine, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, my right hand is the hand that I prefer to use with the crossfader. When I started learning and started teaching myself, this was my crossfader hand, and this was my record hand. I'm actually right-handed, so it really comes down to what your preference is. But we say that if you just sort of do an impersonation or impression of a DJ scratching, whichever hand you naturally put to the deck is the one that you should probably use, because it's your natural instinct to put it there. And so it doesn't actually matter which way round the hands are going when you're actually watching any training, because what's happening is identical on each side. Always the hand is on the left of the jog wheel. And sometimes this is a mistake that people make, which is that on the right here, they may put their hand on the right. And I've seen people do that, but you've always got to have your hand on the left of the jog wheel. And that's because, I'll demonstrate it for you. Moving this from here that way is forward, and that way is back. If it's here, that's back and that's forward. So it's the complete reverse. You must have your hand on the left of the jog wheel. And the crossfader, I prefer it where the crossfader moves towards the deck to switch the deck on. Some, like advanced scratch DJs, have it in what's called hamster style, which we heard about earlier on, where the fader is here and this would be switching on. You can actually reverse the fader switch on pretty much all modern DJ gear. But I prefer the traditional way, which is I'm moving the fader towards the deck to switch it on. Now, if I wanted to scratch on this side, I actually cross my hands over because it's easier for me. I still prefer to use the same hand on the jog wheel and the same hand on the fader. So if I wanted to scratch on this side, I'm just going to enable my crossfader. So because, controllers are small and compact, you're not having to reach across a big set of decks. It's actually really easy to do that. So don't worry too much when you're first learning about needing to learn with both hands. It's not necessary. Give yourself a better chance. Learn with one combination to begin with, and then you can always cross over. Then if you get super advanced and you want to start learning it this way, then you can.
So it really doesn't matter, people, what anyone's showing you. You might have someone who can scratch showing you, and just because they're using different hands, you're not losing anything. There's no difference. Sideshow Mall says, should the volume be lowered on the track being scratched? Sometimes the scratches sound too loud and overpower the song that's playing.
Yep. So if you are, I'm going to go back to the decks again. So you're playing this beat and you want to bring a scratch in, but you're not sure how loud this is. You can rehearse in the headphones and look at your level meters. I'm just going to change the view so you can see that. You can look at the level meters here. And you'll see that, okay, so that scratch doesn't look like it's too loud. But quite often with scratch sounds, they're very sharp sounding. So even though the volume may not look very loud, they cut through. They really are, they cut through, they're very crisp. So the way to check this live in the mix is to fade your scratch in. So start scratching and fade it in. When it gets to a level that you're happy with, for me there, then you can carry on. So that's the way, that's the kind of foolproof way of making sure that you don't bring your scratch in too loud, is to fade it in with a baby scratch. Bring it
Good.
in.
Lots of mad respect for our tutors in the course, Steve. Mark says, Raspberry's ace. I had a one-on-one lesson with him. Great stuff. And Sherwin says, I love DJ Angelo. So if you've just joined us, we're talking about our Scratching for Controller DJs course, because it's just gone on its 2020 launch, and it's a really good offer at the moment on it. So if you want to have a look at it, it is djtips.co/scratch course. It's on the screen now. And that's why Steve's here, because Steve is the head tutor in that course, along with some of those other names that we mentioned. And we're taking questions about scratching today, people. So Stanley says, I'm used to scratching on regular turntables, but it's harder to do on a controller. Why is that?
I think it's just a slight adjustment to something new. I don't think it's harder. It's just different when you try it the first time, because a vinyl record is moving, and when you grab hold of it, the turntable is moving underneath. So there's that sort of drag that you feel on the record. So you feel like as soon as you let it go, it's going to pull away. So that's a very different feeling to most jog wheels, which are basically static. There's nothing moving underneath you. But what I would recommend is that you get on a controller, get one of your favorite scratch sounds on there, and just starting and stopping the deck just with your fingers, just stopping a sound, letting it off, starting it again, and just getting used to what it's like to let the sound off. Because what tends to happen is, because you're used to needing to give the vinyl a little bit of a push, if you do that on a controller, it will go rip, rip. You basically, all you need to do is lift your fingers off. You don't need to push forward. So that tends to be the thing that, like, people think, oh, this just doesn't sound the same, because you don't need to give it that push. It's an instant. As soon as you let your fingers off, either these jog wheels here are actually mechanical style. So these have like a switch. These are Pioneer CDJ, the same as CDJ players. These have a switch, so these take a particular sort of amount of pressure to engage the sound. But most controllers have, I can't remember what it's called. It's like electro something. Phil, you'll be able to help me out with that.
They're called capacitive jog wheels, where it's just like literally a tiny touch.
Yeah. So getting used to, if you see here, it might not be able to see it on the camera, but all I need to do is lift my finger and the sound will play. And it plays absolutely in the exact speed that it should be in. There's no push required. So that's the big difference. But just with a little bit of practice, when I first moved to digital, I'd only ever scratched on vinyl, and that was like 20 plus years of only ever scratching on vinyl. Literally just, a few hours of getting used to of applying what I'd learned to jog wheels, and I had it nailed. And that was with Tractor Control S4 Mark 1 jog wheels, which were very small.
It's a bit like driving a new car, isn't it? You haven't forgotten how to drive. You've just got to get used to the new car. And I think that's a good way of putting it. Andre, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, says, I always thought that learning scratching was difficult. It wasn't bad, but learning it from the beginning, unlearning bad habits was worse. It's good to learn it well from the beginning. So people asking about the controller you're using, let's just have a non-scratch question. Is it a good investment? Because I'm thinking of buying one. Any other suggestions? Are you enjoying that controller, Steve?
Yeah, I love it. It's this is the DDJ 1000. So this is the Rekordbox version. Of course, there's a version for Serato as well. And I've got
feels like Club Gear. Yeah, it's a good choice.
Yeah, and it's definitely. It's like for me. Yeah, it's highly recommended. As you know, I just had to fight you to get this one back into my studio to...
Yeah, you did have to fight me to get it back. And there's a hole now in this studio where it belongs. So anyway, Dean says, I've been DJing for 15 years. I started with Serato Scratch Live, but I stopped because I'm now more of a live set DJ. And I think DJ needs to be put into categories, e.g. remix DJ, scratch DJ, live set DJ, because it's impossible to master every aspect of DJing. So one must focus on something, like maybe scratching practice more and then perfect it. It's a good question. The best DJs can do everything. Jazzy Jeff, there's an example. But I think there is something to be said for concentrating on one thing at a time sometimes, because it can get overwhelming if you're trying to learn to produce and scratch and beat mix and DJ every style. There is an argument for mastering one thing at a time, right, Steve?
Yeah. And the thing is, I will always champion scratching as a thing to spend time on, because you get other benefits from learning to scratch in terms of other DJing techniques, especially counting, timing, beat mixing. Dropping scratches in on time over other tracks is the fundamentals of beat mixing. And so it kind of, you're already learning that stuff by learning how to scratch properly. You're learning timing, 4s and 8s and 16s and patterns and stuff like that, which is like, a fundamental part of DJing and mixing anyway. But also I think that a mistake that people make is that they think, okay, I'm going to learn to scratch, right? So go and research the most advanced scratch techniques, watch videos of Qbert or like the DMC World Champions, and think, like, that's my goal. But like that's that's going to take you a long time to get there, and it's going to completely consume you. And if that's what you want to do, then that's cool. But you could learn 4 or 5 cool little scratch techniques and patterns and combinations. Then you could concentrate a bit of time on your beat mixing. You could concentrate a bit of time on some sort of live remixing or finger drumming stuff, and be a bit more, just have some basic skills of a lot of different aspects that you can use when appropriate. And that would probably be a better mix, I think. But you kind of have to plan you'd have to sort of, plan your practicing schedules with discipline to say, right, okay, I'm doing an hour of scratching today. I'm going to do an hour of finger drumming, an hour of beat mixing, or whatever it is. But, I think you can be an all-rounder, and there's plenty of DJs out there who are.
Yeah, and there's something about DJing that makes you want to learn everything. That isn't there? You know, you're naturally curious as a DJ. DJ Indy says scratching is like learning another language. Learning to scratch, you really need a lot of patience, and I encourage you to learn from the course from Digital DJ Tips. So clearly one of your students there, Steve. DJ
Yeah, cool.
Trainwreck, glad to catch this scratch special. I'm pretty confident in scratching. While I do have a few bad habits, I could use improvement. The course is for people who are like you as well. There's a lot, this takes you right up to DMC standard. So there is stuff there for intermediate people as well. So awesome. So let's carry on. Here, someone spotted the email said 2 p.m. EDT. It should be 11 a.m. EDT. There's obviously a mistake there with the one we've got at 2 p.m. Eastern time, Steve. So yeah, someone's dropped
Ouch.
something that they shouldn't have dropped there. But anyway, mistakes happen. We have so many of these live streams. That's why. All right then. So the next question I have is people are discussing whether you have to use scratching in just one narrow type of music, and saying no, you can. Every tool can be used across the spectrum if you apply it correctly. All right then. So I've seen people scratch with the channel faders on a controller. Is that the same as the crossfaders? Says Angad. Steve.
Yeah, right, well, let me go to the overhead view here. So what? So was that Angad? Was it?
Yeah, Angad.
Yeah, so you'll see DJs sometimes using the vertical faders to cut and scratch with. Probably not so much on this type of gear. You'll mostly see that with like the Pioneer DJ MS9 or the Rain 70 or 72 mixers, the kind of more scratch mixers. And the reason for that is that when they're actually mixing with different tracks, and they want to cut this track in, but without affecting the crossfader, then you can switch over to the vertical fader. It's a bit, there are certain techniques which require you to leave the crossfader open. So if you want to do some cutting, you can do some cutting here. The problem is that this fader has a long length of travel between 0 and 100% of volume. So you need to be able to control the curve of your vertical fader as well if you want to do that. But bear in mind that if you change that setting and you are able to go from 0 to 100% volume by, say, here, then if you're a blend DJ who likes to sort of blend tracks in the mix, then it removes a lot of that control. So I actually play a lot of house music as well. So I like to blend tracks. So I leave my vertical faders are purely for my mixing. I never use the crossfader for mixing. If I need to grab a track and start scratching with it, I'll use the crossfader, and I've got the crossfader set to the sharpest cut, so it's only for scratching, not for blending, just in my setup.
Cool. Thank you, Steve. So Ian, this is a good question. It touches on something. He says, I do most DJs use scratch sample packs rather than trying to scratch a specific part of a track? I tried doing it the second way with old school tracks with no success. And where do you get scratch sample packs to practice on?
Well, you can get a fantastic one from us, which is we've got a thing called the Scratch Pack, which is free scratch sounds and beats that will get you started. And that's actually, you'll find that all on our website, but it's djtips.co/scratch.
Yeah, and the team, if you post it in the comments, I'll put it on the screen if the team are here. The Scratch Pack URL. So yeah, and also, of course, in the course you get enough stuff to keep you going for years, right?
There's hundreds, yeah.
But the bigger question is, sorry, Steve. The bigger question is about how do you pick the right parts of a track that are going to sound good? If you just want to pick a part in any track, how do you know which bit's going to sound good to use as a scratch sound?
So you need to make sure that it's pretty clean without drums on it, especially if it's like a vocal part that you want to use. If there's a vocal in a particular track or a hook or something that you want to scratch with, if it's got drums and bass underneath it, then you need to avoid it, or you can EQ the drums and bass out and see if the sound cuts through. So kind of avoid drums, but there are lots of little cool little drops and little breakdowns in all sorts of music, which provide little snippets that you can pull and use to scratch with yourself. And I think these sounds that we use here, they're classic, they sound brilliant. They're great to learn with because they're a really good reference, because so many other people scratch with them. You can reference to see how well you're doing compared to other people. But absolutely, I encourage you to find sounds in your own collection. Here, for example, on my other deck here, I'm actually practicing a mix for my live stream for the weekend. And I have a classic Todd Terry a cappella, house a cappella here.
Tonight is party time, it's party time tonight.
Okay, so not a traditional scratch sound at all, but I have been doing some scratching with it.
Tonight is party time, it's party time tonight.
So, there are going to be little bits in tracks in your collection that you love that are going to be right to scratch with, but try to keep them clean. Acapellas are really good because they're super clean. Just avoid drums.
Cool. All right. So lots of people talking about jog wheel size. DJs have been scratching for years on the Pioneer jog wheels, which are the ones that Steve's got there. So they're certainly big enough. But Steve's done scratch demos on stuff that's more like this. And it wasn't easy, Steve. We're not going to lie about it, but you did it, didn't you? And, you can scratch on pretty much anything. As long as it goes around and controls the music, it's possible to scratch on it. Jason says the Hercules Starlight is small but powerful, but it's nuts. It is. They're great little controllers. They're good fun. Charlie says some edits that have intro acapellas are awesome to scratch in what we call wordplay. So you're quite right there, Steve. And when using tracks to scratch into transition, should the bass be turned down low? Good question, Steve. Where do you set the bass when you're doing that?
So if you're scratching a track, if you're actually scratching it in to drop it in the mix, then the kind of same rules would apply as if you were doing a normal blend, which is that you wouldn't want your basses to clash. But you can scratch in a drum beat and drop it in. We teach this in the course. We've actually got a whole module of transitions, the way to use, you've learned your scratch techniques. How do you actually use them in normal DJ sets? And a really simple one is just a 4-beat baby scratch on a drum beat and then dropping it into the mix. But the same rules have to apply. You have to have the bass out of that kick while you're scratching it, and then once you've dropped it in, you can swap the basses over.
Cool. All right.
rules.
Well, listen, we've overrun our half hour, but then we like to do that, don't we, Steve? I hope we've answered a lot of your questions. I hope we've helped you realize you can do this on any gear. You can do this with any genre of music. In fact, if you could be the only DJ doing it in your genre, in your neighborhood or your town, you might stand out, and that you don't need a reason to do this, a bigger reason to do this than just because it's fun. So I think the great thing about scratching is if you really want to do it, and if you really want to apply yourself and learn it, it can be learned. It's not something that's you either got or you haven't. DJ Busy Bee has got a really cool take on this, and DJ Busy Bee, big comment, but I would say basically worked out that the fader settings were wrong and the hands were wrong. It was all wrong, but I came across your video a couple of years ago and it helped so much. It's just getting the beginning right. It's getting those first habits bedded in properly and then building on them and not trying to run before you can walk, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. And as was kind of asked, I think in the first question, you don't need any other reason other than just that would be cool fun to learn how to do that. To do it, it's like most of the people who take the course and learn how to do it is just because it's a cool thing that they've always wanted to learn to be able to do. And I look forward to helping you guys get there.
So everyone who hasn't had their question answered, we will try and answer them under the comments in YouTube and Facebook. Sorry, but as always, we're very busy. And I've put the URL on the screen again. It's here, although it's under you, Steve. Steve, go like that. Put your fingers like that. Yeah, there it is. Steve can only see me. He can't see any of the stuff on the screen that you guys can see. djtips.co/scratch course is where you can find out more about it. Now is the time if you want to do it, because this is an offer that is going to go away in a few days, and then it's going to be back to paying nearly double for it. So if you're interested in doing this with us, now's the time. I think it's good for you to scratch us out then for 30 seconds or so, Steve. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no problem.
He loves me putting him on the spot. Thank you very much, everyone. Get good, get out there, make the moments, and we will see you again very soon. Over to you, Mr. Canueto.